Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name is Darryl and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Darryl.
The moment of truth. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my power that I choose to call God for allowing me to be here this morning, because I truly believe that there are no coincidences, and that everything that I've done over the past in my history, my drinking history and my sober history, has led me right to this point right here in this room this morning with you. And I feel loved this morning. I absolutely feel loved this morning. And I had a lot to say. I've been sharing a lot. And hopefully what that does for me, and because this is, this is not my first rodeo, so what that does for me, is I think that it weeds out a lot of the BS because of my ego. And I didn't even realize I had an ego until I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But today I recognize it. And when I recognize it, I need to address it. So I'm going to address it by saying that I'm an alcoholic and I dressed up this morning. If you had seen me 20 years ago, most of you would probably move to the back rows. My sobriety date is June 20th, 1993. I've been sober a little bit over 20 years, and it is awesome. And the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that I've come to believe in and live my life around that program that's outlined in that book, and it tells me that we should be interested to hear from those of you who are getting results from this program. That's why I'm here, because I've gotten results from this program. I want to thank my wife in advance for being here with me this morning, and I look forward to hearing her share always. And she is my rock, who I always try to leave, because I'm a runner, right? I'm a runner, and I always try to leave until I just had to tell myself, why are you trying to leave this beautiful woman? You wouldn't have the life you have if it wasn't for that beautiful. Part of it is that she has been there and she has been strong through this relationship. But I'm an alcoholic, and I drank a lot, and I used a lot, and I went crazy a lot, and I'm a qualified. First, I want to thank the board for asking us to come out and share our experience, strength, and hope. Thank you, Pam. And I'm not real good with names, but thank all of you for having us here this morning. And it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day to be sober, and I believe the theme of this this marathon is the disease of alcoholism.
Family recovery.
The family disease. Yes. It's a family disease.
Yeah.
And I'm an alcoholic, and I'm not alcoholic because there was alcoholics in my family. I'm an alcoholic because of what happened to me after I started drinking. I lost the ability to control and enjoy my drinking. Now, there were drinkers in my family. My mother was a drinker. She liked to drink Schlitz. And she liked to drink that Schlitz with the squiggly writing on the can, not the bull. She liked to drink that Schlitz. And very early, she started giving me, every now and then, she'd give me a sip of that Schlitz. And I would take the sip, and it would be cold, and it would go down, and it would burn, and then I would start to get this soothing feeling in my stomach, and I would sense this, because I couldn't put a name in it then, I would sense this calm and this ease and comfort from drinking. And after a while, she didn't have to give me sips. I just went in the refrigerator and stole it, right? Because from a very early age, even before drinking, there was something wrong with my character. And I started lying. And you remember, I don't know if you remember, there was a time when your parents would say to you, we won't whoop you if you tell us the truth. And then as soon as you tell them the truth, they whoop you, right? And the next time they tell you that, do you tell the truth? No. So I started lying from a very early age. Before the drinking, I figured out ways to get around it, you know, lying and manipulating and cheating and stealing. And, you know, I'm the youngest of 8 children, and it was just my mom in the home. and she would have a boyfriend come through every now and then. I'm the youngest child. I had 4 older brothers and 3 older sisters, and they loved me, and they took care of me. And I became selfish and self-centered, and it became all about me. And I kind of got warped and distorted because what I believed is that because they took care of me that way, then you should take care of me that way too. And I expected it from you. I was totally wrong, but I expected it. And so I started drinking a little heavier in junior high school. And junior high school was like, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And I had a pretty happy childhood. We did the summer camp thing where we went to summer camp, and we sat around a campfire and we toasted marshmallows, and, you know, we did the hot dog on the stick thing, and, you know, and it was a lot of fun, and we swam and we rode mini bikes and we rode gold cars, and we had so much fun. I had a beautiful childhood. I was a gymnast. I learned how to tumble. I loved that stuff, man. But I started experimenting in junior high school. And when I started experimenting in junior high school, I was like a walking experiment. There was so many different, drugs and alcohol, and all through my junior high school years was just filled with that. I did manage to make enough classes to pass, though, but I drank a lot. High school was a blur. 10th grade, I remember. 11th, 12th, I dropped out in the 11th grade, and I got married at 17 years old. Wow, what a journey. It started early, and I left my mom's house and moved in with this woman who I didn't know how to have a relationship because I don't know how to do relationships. And I sabotaged that. That lasted all but 6 months, and I was back at home with mommy. That's my story. And my mother passed away in 1980. I was 18 years old when she passed away. I never knew my dad. I met him the first time when I was 31 years old, and a year later he died. And I felt absolutely nothing, poor guy, because I didn't know him. Man, this is a sob story. But that's my story. And I proceeded to drink. My mother passed away, and I loved my mother because she was like, you know, she groomed me, right? She groomed me from a very early age. She taught me how to drive so I could become her driver, so I could take her to card parties. You know, I was like her designated driver. I would take her to card parties and the family function, and she would drink and have fun with her friends, and then I would drive her home. And in 1980, she told me that she was not feeling well on the weekend. I think it was a Saturday, so I stayed close to the house all weekend, and Sunday she still wasn't feeling well. Monday, she said, I need you to take me to the doctor. I took her to the doctor on Monday. She went to her private physician, and he admitted her to the hospital. He admitted her to the hospital. I saw her Monday, I saw her Tuesday. and I saw her Wednesday. On Thursday, I didn't see her because I had her car and I was running around with my friends doing what we do, drinking and having fun. Friday morning, the doctor called and said she had passed away. I missed her on Thursday because I was drinking and using and doing what I do. And she passed away Friday morning. And when she passed away that Friday morning, I went to the hospital to see her, my family and I, and when I seen her laying in the hospital bed, and she had this look on her face, and it was such a peaceful look. It was like she had a little smile on her face. And and that was the picture that I wanted to hold in my mind. So when they had the funeral, of course, I didn't view the body because I wanted to hold that picture in my mind, the peaceful one of her resting in peace. And so I left the funeral, and I went to move in with my brother-in-law and one of my older sisters, and that's when I had arrived. That's when I needed something, and alcohol became my friend. So I started drinking. And I started going to jail. From 1980 to 1990, I drank a lot and I used a lot. I went crazy a lot. I robbed, I stole, I did everything that one can do to become a menace to society, so to speak. And I had accomplished nothing in 10 years. And at the end of 1990, I went before this judge, and this judge was tired of me. He was tired of seeing me. And he looked at me and he said, Mr. Webb, I've been seeing you in my courtroom quite often, and quite frankly, I'm tired of seeing you. And the next time I see you, your county time would have played out, and you're going to the penitentiary. And that woke me up. So after that, you know, I didn't really go to jail that much after that. I kind of just kept drinking and using, and I went to a program and because I wanted to be sober, and I started to get sober in 19. The first time I came to the program, it was I think it was 89, and I stayed a year and a half, and actually I stayed 2 years and a half, but I got to the program, and I still had an idea on how I was going to run my life. And because I had ideas on how I was going to run my life, I didn't really buy into the idea of the program and going to meetings and getting sponsors and all of that stuff, because I still had an idea on how I was going to make this thing work. And a lot of the idea that I had, those things were always outside of me, because outside things would fix me. And I knew what I needed to be fixed by. I needed a nice car, I needed some beautiful woman on my arm, I needed a place to live, I needed, you know, some nice jewelry and nice clothes, and all of those things would fix me temporarily. But what started to happen is, because I wasn't drinking, I found out that if you don't drink, you can save money. Because all of my money was going to drinking and those other things. So once I stopped drinking, I started to be able to put a few ends together to be able to get some of those things that I was missing. So I got those things, and I wasn't drinking. And the time came, the day came, the book says, when I would have no mental defense against the first one. And it was amazing, because the idea came, right? And when the idea to drink came, it came in a small voice. It said, sure would be nice to have one. It whispered to me, and I said, well, that. And I just dismissed it, right? But the next time it came a little stronger. Sure would be nice to have one. Or I seen some commercial or some billboard where it was just looking enticing, and I said, I was on my way home, and this is a true story. We had moved to West LA, and I was on my way home, and I was driving up King Boulevard, and when I got to Figueroa, and for those of you who don't know Figueroa is where the ladies of the evening hang out. So I got to Figueroa, and the freeway was right here. I lived in Watts with my wife. And the freeway was here, and I could have just jumped on the freeway and went on over and been to the house in about 5 minutes, but I chose to take the scenic route and go down Figueroa. So when I went down Figueroa, I saw her. And when I saw her, I pulled over and I introduced myself. and I took one after being dry for 2.5 years. And when I took that drink, it was like the drink took a drink and the drink took me. So I took a drink and I knew, it was amazing. It was like I knew that once I put it in, that my life was finna change. And then another voice said that you don't know when you're gonna be able to turn it off. Because once you get it started, you don't know when. It's like being in the cage with a gorilla, right? And the gorilla is having a good time with you. And you say, stop, gorilla. And the gorilla don't stop until the gorilla say it's over. That's kind of like what drinking is like. So I drank for 9 months, and after 9 months, I had lost everything that I had gained in that 2.5 years, and I became homeless and hopeless and helpless. And what happened to me in that short 9 months is that the disease of alcoholism progressed. And it progressed to a point where I couldn't hold liquor on my stomach, and I couldn't do any of those other things that I was doing, because every time I drank, I threw it up. And every time I tried to get high off of those other things, I end up going to the hospital because I just knew I was going to have a heart attack. And then that woman who I was with at the time, because I became real difficult to live with, she said, I think you need to go back to that program. And after a while, I would like to tell you that I just said, okay, I'll go back to that program. But what I had done is I had broken into my neighbor's house, and I had stolen. I watched this guy. He lived by himself. He drove a truck for Sony. And I watched this man go to work and work hard every day, leave his house. And then I broke in his house and I stole all of his stuff. And then I knew, there was this feeling inside that said that if you don't go get some help, either you're going to get locked up for the rest of your life or somebody's going to kill you. And I believed it with every fiber of my being. I knew that if I didn't get some help, that my life was going to be over with. So I went back to the program, and when I got back to the program, I got a sponsor immediately, because as soon as I walked into the program, there was a guy that I had known previously from another program, and he saw me and he said, Darryl, I got the sponsor for you. And I didn't say, oh, I don't want to work no program and do none of that stuff. I said, where is he? I was ready for help. And I asked the help to give me help, and I didn't tell him what kind of help to give me. So I started to do this program, and he started to take me through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And from that day to this day, I haven't had to drink. Early sobriety is often difficult, and I went through a lot in early sobriety. And I met Evelyn when I was around 3.5, maybe 4 years sober. And without going into a long story about how we met, is I saw her from across the room, and she saw me, and she had that big, beautiful smile, and we kind of just gravitated towards each other, and here we are. But that's not the story, right? The story is, I saw her, she saw me, I told her, I'm still married, sleeping on the couch, will you go out with me? And because she was working some kind of program at the time, she said, no, I don't think that's going to work for me. But she did say, if it's meant to be, we'll see each other again. And about 9 months later, we saw each other again, and I wasn't living on the couch no more. I had moved out, got my own little place, so she went out with me, and we've been together ever since. In August, it'll be 17 years that we've been together, but it'll be 10 years, you know, we'll be married for 10 years in August, but 17 years collectively that we've been together. And it's been a journey. It has been quite a journey. It ain't like, you know, Evelyn went to more meetings than I did. She knew the big book better than I did. And every time I tried to, you know, jive her or do something to, you know, deceive her, she would just be like right on point. And it's funny, you know, I can laugh about it, but I love Al-Anon. I love Al-Anon and I love Al-Anon because of what it's done for our family. But I was speaking a little at another meeting before, and I said I had a love-hate relationship with Al-Anon. I loved Al-Anon because of what it's given our family, but I hated Al-Anon because I can't trick her. Because she sees clearly through my BS. But the thing that I love most about my wife is that she will say what she needs to say, but she allows me to grow into the man that I need to be. And she don't make threats. She might tell me, you need to go on out there then. You need to just go. Why don't you just go? She don't threaten me. You know, we have a good relationship because of the program of Al-Anon and Alcoholics Anonymous. Because we have programs, and she has a sponsor, and I have a sponsor, and I go to meetings regularly, and she goes to meetings regularly, and I'm working and living through the steps, and she's working and living through the steps in the program, and we get to come together, and we get to live somewhat peacefully. There's going to always be some chaos that comes. Let me say this. We've been together 17 years. And it has become clear to me that I'm the problem in this relationship. Because I can't really ever look back and recall a time where, you know, and that's terrible, Evelyn, where I could say that she did this or she did this or she caused this to happen. She almost caused us to lose everything that we worked so hard for. No, that'd be me. I'm the culprit. But I love the program because of its truth. And they used to always say that saying that I think, why do people say that? The truth will make you free. So when she happens to tell me the truth about who I am, I don't have to like it. What I have to do is I have to look at it, and then I have to be honest about it, and then I can even say, you can go on about your business, or I can say, I want this relationship to work, so I'm going to work on it. And that's what I believe holds us together, because I've always been willing to work on me and what my issues are. Because she clear that my issues ain't her issues. She clear on that. So we got this family that, you know, that has come together through the program. We have 2 young adults. We have a 27-year-old son, and we have Anita's 23-year-old daughter, who was a member of Al-Anon, and she's transitioning over into Al-Anon now, and we had this family come together, and in the beginning it was rough. It was really rough, because my son came to take his daddy back to his mother, and Evelyn, you know, she loved him from the beginning, and there was a lot of problems going on, and he said something to us one day. I think he was 15 at the time. He said something to us one day that made me go, And I said, I think it's only going to be one man in this house, and that be me. So you need to pack your little stuff and leave here, because what he said was so harsh. It was so harsh that I won't even repeat it. That I just knew that he was a man now, and he needed to have his own roof. So he went back to Detroit, and a couple of years later, he called and he said he had enlisted in the Marines, right? Because when he was here with us, when he was in high school, he had started going to this ROTC program, and so he enlisted in the Marines, and then he started writing Evelyn these letters, telling her how much she loved her, and he knew how she only had his best interests at heart, and those drill sergeants really made him think. And so he's turned out to be a fine young man. He got married early when he got into the Marines, and now he's got 2 beautiful children. You know, our grandchildren are 4 and 6, and then in July they'll be 5 and 7, and we get a chance to go down and pick them up and, you know, take them on trips, and, you know, it's just a beautiful thing, and Anita is just a joy to watch grow. She is, you know, she is so responsible. She just want to take care of herself. You know, do that. But she has a lot of help. You know, God has blessed us where we have been able to support her and help her. She works hard, and she goes to Cal Poly Pomona, and our mission is to see that she graduates there. Now we'll take care of her, you know, and do our part, but she has to do her part, and so far she has done her part, and it's beautiful to watch these young adults, man, who, when I was 27 years old and when I was 23 years old, I was crazy as hell. I was just out there making my story. But these kids are, you know, they have lives of their own, and they seem to be pretty productive, and I applaud them, you know, and I think that comes through, you know, through us being able to set an example to them, you know, to get up every day, go to work, or go somewhere. You go and get a trade, do something, you know. They've been able to watch us do that. So I believe our children emulate who we are in some respects, not always. So now we're in the family afterwards, and things are really, right now, things are really good. Things are really good, and my time is getting short. And I normally run over, you know, because I can talk. But when I thought about this, you know, this convention and coming here and sharing my experience, strength, and hope, and when I thought about it, what came to mind for me when I thought about this convention, because we do this a few times a year, we're not really speakers in the traditional sense. We just come to carry a message of hope, hopefully, and share our experience, strength, and hope, and hopefully someone in the audience will hear something read or said that will make them think, yeah, you know, we too can have this program, because this program is available for all of us. But this program requires a lot of work. This is not a program where you can just come to meetings and just sit around and just think that you're going to get it by osmosis. Like it's going to ooze up out of the chairs and just, you know, are you going to hear somebody say something and you're just going to get this program? No, we have 12 steps and 12 traditions for a reason. And I take the steps because I'm a very sick individual. I don't use that when I say I'm a very sick individual because of my alcoholism. I don't use that as a, you know, as a scapegoat. I say that because the disease of alcoholism is a serious disease. And it's even worse for me when I'm not drinking. if I'm not living by some principles and practicing the traditions and making meetings and working with other alcoholics and going. Man, I went to a meeting yesterday and I had a friend stand up and say he went out. And I felt bad for him. But we don't wish drunk on nobody. But I'm still sober. That's why I do what I do in the program. And I'm very active in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous because it has saved my life and because I know it works. I have something to compare it to, and I'm going to quit. That's why I sponsor guys. That's why I have a panel that I take to a recovery home. That's why I do a big book study every Sunday morning. I get up and I go and try to help me. Right? Those guys be saying, oh, thank you for coming. I'll be like, I'll be here for me. hopefully you get something out of this. But this is what we do. When we ask to come out and share, I'm not a celebrity. I'm a drunk. I come here so that one more day I can feel useful again. This helps me to feel useful. When I get here, I'm all nervous and I wonder what I'm going to say. Now, that power that I have is taking over. I ain't nervous no more. You know, I'm just here doing what I'm supposed to be doing, looking at all you beautiful smiling faces, hoping that you know that the disease of alcoholism is a serious disease and that it will kill me without a drink. I haven't had a drink in 20 years, but at 10 years of sober, I was in jail because of the disease of alcoholism, because of the ism. So have to work on me on a regular basis. I'm worse sober than I was drunk. I would do stuff sober that I wouldn't even think of doing drunk if I don't practice some principles. I'm clear on that. And guess what? I'm the only one in this room who has to be clear on that for me. You have to find what works for you. So if you hear in the sound of my voice, I want to thank you for coming to hear the speakers and hope that you know that this is a serious deal. And we didn't just come down here to just dress up. We came down here to save our lives one more day. Thank you for allowing us to be here. He like me, he's a hugger.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. And let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
I could be snarky and say now the rebuttal. But after that talk, there's no rebuttal to be made. Thank you. And so now Evelyn's going to share her story in the family recovery. You've got between 30 and 45 minutes, so go to 9. Yeah. Somebody wants to hear her for an hour. 10, 15, 10, okay. 10, 20.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Woo. Okay. I'm ready. I'm Evelyn, and I am a very grateful member of the Al-Anon family groups. There's a couple of reasons why this is different. And like Darryl, this is not my first rodeo either, but there's a couple of reasons why it's different. I don't think we've ever shared at 9 o'clock in the morning. And two, usually we are somewhere out of our county, you know, when we share at a convention. And we live in Orange County. So the people in these rooms are the people that I go to meetings with. Somebody said to me this morning they don't think that they've ever seen me in anything but other than jeans. And so that's a good thing. I get to wear blue jeans to work. And there's a lot of people in this room who love me. I know that I'm loved today. But more importantly than that, there's a lot of people in this room that I love. My sponsor is here today, and there's a really special Alateen sponsor here today. I love Alateen, and hopefully I get to talk about how much I love Alateen. You just never know what you're going to say when you get up here. There's a couple of people in here that I sponsor, and when Pam called us and asked us to share, you know, I have this really bad habit of not answering my cell phone to numbers that I don't know, and my husband has reprimanded me for that on a couple of occasions, and so now I'm trying to get better at that, and so she was one of those numbers that I didn't recognize that I answered the telephone. And when she called us and asked us to share, it was quite a while ago, you know, and when you get that call, you know, it's always yes, of course. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, can't they get somebody else? You know, why me? You know, but what I consider this an obligation. For me, it's an obligation. I know for a lot of people it's an honor and a privilege, but for me, it's an obligation. It's an opportunity for me to pay back what the program of Al-Anon has given me and my family. This is a family disease, which means that it affects everyone. I like to say nobody escapes. Pam and her husband, they would hold these marriage retreats. That's how we met them. And we would go, a couple of years we went to the marriage retreat, and her husband, Clark, her husband, one time said something to me that, you know, I'll never forget. We had gone on this, I know I'm probably starting not at the beginning, but just go with me. We had, 1 year we were going on this retreat. It was a bad year. You know, we've been together for a long time. We've had some good years and we've had some bad years. And this happened to be one of those bad years. Or maybe it was just a bad month. I don't know. You know, and at that time, Darryl's sponsor was Meade Lawrence, who lived in Cyprus. He passed away. And he, you know, his wife had talked him on to going on this trip because he didn't want to go. And so I remember Darryl calling him and saying that he didn't want to go. Basically, he didn't want to ride in the car with me. And, you know, because I had pissed him off about something. And he was like, I'll see you up there, you know. And I had called my sponsor to tell her that I really didn't want to go because I didn't want to sit in the car because I was pissed at him, you know. And she was saying, I'll see you up there. And I tell you, Pam would have her little camera, and so every couple had to take a couple's picture before they left. And this particular, on picture day, I still wasn't over what happened, you know. And so I'm in the bathroom bawling my eyes out. I mean, when I say bawling, I mean bawling, you know. And everybody's looking for me because after you take your couple pictures, then you take the group picture too. So she wanted everybody in one place. So everybody's running around looking for me, trying to figure out where I was. And finally, I came out the bathroom, and we got together and we took that picture. And I couldn't believe it. When I saw that picture, I looked happy. And I remember saying, how did I look like this on this picture when I felt the way I felt? And Clark said, that's your authentic you. And I would never forget that. Because what had happened was that Darryl had went out and bought something that I thought he shouldn't have bought. He told everybody at the retreat that he had spent a lot of money, and that's why I was mad. But it wasn't that he spent the money, it was what he bought with the money. And so we did the retreat, and by the end of the retreat, I was okay, you know, because that's what happens to me. When I'm not in a good space and I go to a meeting or I call my sponsor, then I'm okay. And that's why I keep coming back. I am the oldest of 4, and, you know, every child has a role, and I know that it's no coincidence that I've been married to 2 youngest children, you know. You know, my first sponsor used to say, why would God send you a responsible man? You know, how would you learn anything? And I would say, oh, I grew up in a home where there was drinking. My mother is recovering in Alcoholics Anonymous today. I believe 26 years. My dad never got to Alcoholics Anonymous, did stop drinking because he eventually died of lung cancer. But they were 2 different kind of drinkers. He was the stay-at-home kind of drinker, and she was the party girl kind of drinker. So needless to say, there was a lot of chaos, a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing, you know, a lot of unsurety because they would break up a lot, you know. So there was not a lot of consistency in our home. And so finally, my mom brought my 3 sisters and I to California because her dad lived here, and she just believed that she would have a better life if she came to California. And we all know that geographical cures don't work, so needless to say, when we got here, things just got worse. What happens in a family where you have an oldest daughter and an alcoholic mother is there's a lot of role reversal. So what happens is the daughter becomes the mother, and then the mother becomes the daughter, and things are just very mixed up. And so we came to California, and my mom's drinking progressed, you know, to the point that she was driving on the wrong side of the street, you know, sometimes. And one night we were home, and we were sleeping. I had just graduated high school, and we got this phone call that it's a tow truck driver, basically, who's saying that, you know, they're taking your mom to jail. And I wanted to believe it was a joke, you know, but after my mom called me from jail, I knew it wasn't a joke, that she had driven her car into a storefront window, and they carted her off to jail. When she called me, you know, I had a lot of fears when I was growing up, and one of the fears was that I was afraid to learn how to drive. Where most teenagers are driving at 16, I didn't learn how to drive until I was 21. And I had this boyfriend, and I called him up, and I told him that my mom had been taken to jail, and that I needed him to come and pick me up and take me to the jailhouse so that I could make her bail. By this time, I had graduated high school, and I started saving my own money, and he came by, and, you know, I share this story because, you know, I need to remember what I was like. You know, the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous says that we share in a general way what we were like, what happened, and what we're like today. And he came to pick me up, and at that time, that's when that Stevie Wonder song, Don't Drive Drunk, was really popular. And he picked me up, and he proceeded to sing that song all the way to the jailhouse. And I remember sitting there thinking, that's not nice. You know, you can't treat me that, you shouldn't treat me that way. That's not acceptable to me. I mean, I remember thinking all these things in my head, but I couldn't say anything. I just sat there. And I think that that was one of the first times that I remember feeling humiliated by somebody else's behavior or action. And so I bailed my mom out of jail, and, you know, I just told her, you know, I'm not going to do it again, you know. And she ended up going to jail again a second time. And this time she was driving a car on the wrong side of the street, and she ran head into another car, and there was 4 people in the car, but nobody was hurt, thank God. But this time I didn't go and bail her out. And I went over to her house that day because I'm her mother and she's my child. And I wanted an explanation, you know, what is going on here? And so what she did was she sat down in front of me and she was telling me how she wasn't going to do it anymore. And today I believe that she believed that she wasn't going to do it anymore. But what she did was she got up and she went into the kitchen and she poured some liquor into a teacup. And she came back out and she sat in front of me. And then I said, you know, this is bigger than me, to myself. And I just said, you know, I can't help you. And soon after that, my mom ended up going into Alcoholics Anonymous. And because I was still her mother, I went to Alcoholics Anonymous with her. Because, you know, I needed to see what was, you know, what was going on. What is this all about? You know, what's going to happen? What do you need to do? And today I don't regret that. I'm an Al-Anon member who loves Alcoholics Anonymous. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And my husband is right. You know, he teases me all the time about how he can do a book study from my book, my big book. But we started to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. So she joined Alcoholics Anonymous and I joined Alcoholics Anonymous. And I loved Alcoholics Anonymous. Number one, they weren't putting up with the crap from these new people, you know. My mom and Darryl got sober at the same place, 9604 South Figueroa. If you're ever in town, stop by. They were like, those old timers were gruff, to say the least. They were like, sit down, shut up, we don't want to hear what you got to say, you don't know nothing about being sober, and even if you did, we don't want to hear it. And I was like, finally, you know, somebody is giving it to them, you know. And I stayed there, and I went to those meetings, and I loved it. And I came back almost as much as she did. Until finally, one of my mother's sobriety sisters, who I just got to see turn 30 years sober, she is so beautiful. She said to me, you know there's a place for you. And I said, what place? Because in my mind, I had raised 2 alcoholics and 3 of their children. You know, where could there possibly be a place for me? I'm the one that's doing everything right. I'm the one who is holding everybody up. You know, there couldn't be a place for me. And so she said it was called Al-Anon. I said, Al-Anon. So because I am a rule follower and very obedient, you know, I looked up Al-Anon, and I went to Al-Anon meeting over at Brockman Hospital. Now, I went there with my closed mind, and I walked into that room, and there was a bunch of old ladies, and none of them looked like me, you know. And They were sitting in a circle, and I always like my disclaimer here. This is what I saw, this is what I heard, and I know today that this is not what was happening, and this is not what I saw, okay? The room was dark, you know. Today I know the room wasn't dark, I was dark. And there was just a bunch of little old ladies with white hair complaining about their husbands. Today I know that's not what they were doing. You know, I didn't even stay for the entire meeting. I was like, in all my arrogance, my smug, my self-righteousness, I just got up and left before the meeting was even over. And because I wasn't like them. And I left and I went back and I told my mom's sobriety sister, I said, I don't like that place. And she smiled and she said, okay. She said, this is what I want you to do. There's another 12-step program called ACA. And I said, okay, what is that? She said, that's Adult Children of Alcoholics. And I said, oh, okay, I could probably relate to those people. I'm an adult, my mom's an alcoholic, I can probably have something in common with them. Well, I went to that meeting, I didn't like it either. And, but this time I stayed for the whole meeting. I didn't like it because they were whiners, and I wasn't a whiner, you know. These people were complaining about stuff that had happened to them when they were 3 years old, and they had to be all of 30, and I was just like, I'm not listening to this. So what happened is, somehow or another, I found a program called Codependence Anonymous. Now, there, the ladies still didn't look like me, but at least they were my age, and they were sharing about taking care of people to their detriment. Now that I could relate to, because now my sisters had become adults and they were having children. I still didn't have any children. They were having children and they were having husbands and boyfriends, and they were getting their lights shut off and they were getting their gas shut off, and they couldn't buy clothes for their kids and they couldn't buy beds for their kids. And guess who was doing all that? I was doing all that. And, you know, I was shopping to fix me. That is where I learned not to shop to fix me and to stop taking care of people. But I need to tell you, I didn't do any of the things they suggested. I say 5 years in that program, going to one meeting a week, not doing any fellowship after the meeting, not getting a sponsor. This is a 12-step program, which means that you might want to be taking the steps, but 9 times out of 10, if you don't have a sponsor, you won't be doing that. So I didn't do any of those things. And what I realized today is that I just got sicker and sicker. You know, and what I try to tell the women that I sponsor is meetings are nice. Meetings are where we come to fellowship. Meetings are where we come to share our experience, strength, and hope. But this is a 12-step program. Program, i.e., plan of action. If you're not taking the steps, you might as well not be here. I already did that for you, you know. So, okay, I stayed there 5 years, but in between that time, I did meet Anita's father. We got married. We were going to do this thing, you know. We were going to show people how it should be done, you know. And so, you know, he was drinking, smoking marijuana, but in my mind, I had escaped all that, you know. They usually say that daughters of alcoholics marry alcoholics. He didn't like to drink that much, so I didn't think he was alcoholic. Needless to say, he was pulling this box from under the bed every morning just to get out the bed. But in my mind, I had done it differently. I know those ladies in that meeting were probably sitting there thinking, look at this one here. You know, but I could not see it. I could not. So I went to those meetings, and finally, what happened was I wanted my first husband to go to therapy because he started calling me all these mean names, and I couldn't figure out how to get him to stop calling me all those mean names. And so we went to therapy. What I found out was that marriage therapy is not the cure for alcoholism. I ended up going to marriage counseling for 3.5 years all by myself. because after about 5 sessions, he didn't want to go anymore. And I didn't have any place else to go, so I continued to go. And my mom and my counselor encouraged me to give Al-Anon another try. And that's when I came back to Al-Anon. I came back with the Al-Anon with a little bit more of an open mind. Notice I said a little bit. And so, but I know for sure that at that point that alcoholism had whipped me into submission. I didn't have no more fight. When I got there this time, it was those same little old ladies, because I went to a daytime meeting, but I didn't care what they looked like. I just knew that I belonged there. And so I went to those meetings, and I still was sure, because I'm recently separated, I still was sure that the cure for what I had was a sober husband. I still was sure of that. And so I went to those meetings, and my mom finally said, you know what your problem is? You don't know how to have fun. And I said, really? She says, yeah. So she started to take me to the sober dances. And that's when I met Darryl at one of those dances. And he was right. He walked up to me and he was like, he wanted to take me out, and but he slept on the couch, and his wife slept in the bed, and they were in the process of getting separated. And I was like, I don't think, no, thank you. I don't think that'll work for me. And that's when I knew I was getting better, because I have to, because I have to tell you that 2 months before that, imagine that, had spent the night on Skid Row with a man that I hardly knew. I always fashioned myself a lady, you know, and I had done that. And that time I asked this lady to be my sponsor. That was actually Labor Day weekend. And I went to that meeting the following Tuesday, and I asked this lady to help me because I knew I needed help. I knew it wasn't about my mom being an alcoholic. I knew it wasn't about the fact that I needed a sober husband. I knew that something was wrong with me. So we ended up going out again. I think it was about 9 months later, and you know, it was really funny because Darryl, he wasn't actually going to AA at that time. He was actually going to NA, and he was going to one meeting a week. Now, I was going to AA, and I was going to Al-Anon. And so, of course, now that I'm going to AA, he wants to go to AA, too. That's the real story. And the ladies in the AA meeting would be saying, who is that? You know, and of course, they probably didn't even recognize him until after he was rolling around with me. But what they didn't realize was I wasn't following him, he was following me. Because I loved Alcoholics Anonymous. And so, so we would start going to these meetings, and you know, Darryl talked a little bit about our coming together as a family, right? I remember Darryl would always say that he wanted his son to come and be with us, you know, and I remember that was, you know, during the time when they would let you go to the gate to meet people to get off the plane. And this little guy stepped off the plane, and I swear it was love at first sight, you know. What I thought, though, what I thought, because I'm still relatively new, was that I could love him into good behavior. That all he needed was a little bit of love. Because basically his mom was sending him from Michigan to California because she couldn't handle him. You know, and so what I found out was that I can't do that. Not for anybody. I can't love anybody into good behavior. So we tried to blend these families, and, you know, In the beginning, it was okay, but you know, one of the things that that DJ would say to me was that, you know, I came back to get my dad to take him to my mom. You know that, right? And then I would say, okay, sweetheart, but that probably is not going to happen. You know, and then we would have too many rules, and he would go back home, and then he'd come back, and then he'd go back home. My mom started calling him the international traveler. He was going back and forth from Michigan to California so much. And finally, you know, he did go back home, and he joined the military, and he did. He started to write me these love letters, you know. But what I learned from that was that I think that was the first time that I could really see the program of Al-Anon working for me, because I didn't have to take it personally. I could see that he was hurting, you know, and I would go to the meetings every time he would go home, and I'd cry, and then those older ladies would say to me, good, you ought to be glad that little brat is going back home. But I was never glad, you know, because to me, I just thought that he belonged here with us. And so I would like to be able to say that because I got my sober husband, and because we got our kids in Alateen, and because I'm in Alateen, we just skipped down this, you know, this yellow brick road, and we were just happy. Darryl mentioned to you that, you know, at 10, 11 years of sobriety, 8 years in Al-Anon for me, he went to jail. You know, and, you know, whenever I hear newcomers in a meeting and they just, I just want them to be sober, I just want them to be sober, just want them to be sober. And then I would say, and then what? You know, and then what? You know, because if me being here has anything to do with somebody being sober, I'm in trouble. Me being here has nothing to do with my qualifier. I don't have a qualifier. What qualifies me for this program is right in between these two ears right here. It's the way I think and the way I behave and what happens to me when somebody is not doing what I think they should be doing. It doesn't matter what somebody's doing, whether it's drinking, eating, on the computer too much. You know, I can act the same way. I can have those same kind of behaviors, you know, wanting to check the cell phone, wanting to check the computer history, wanting to check the meter on the car. I mean, I can do all that, whether somebody's drunk or not. That's why I belong here. I had the opportunity to go to North Carolina last weekend. My little sister decided that her life would be better in North Carolina. And so I went to North Carolina. You know, thank God it was after AFG. You know, I was telling Pam at AFG, I said, I'm here, then I get to go to North Carolina, and then I get to go to the convention in Costa Mesa. You know, it was a sad visit. You know, I don't have the time to tell you the things that I experienced over the weekend. I got another opportunity to see how insidious and how progressive this disease is. There's no alcohol in my sister's home, but there's a lot of hurting people. And I'm not one to call my family untreated Al-Anons. I call them untreated family members because I spent 5 years in a 12-step program, untreated. So I don't say untreated Al-Anon, untreated family members. I got the opportunity to be with my untreated family members for 4 days, and it was not a good thing. But you know what happened? When I left, everybody was happy that I had came. Now, I'm going to tell you something. There was a time that they wouldn't have been. They would have been talking about how judgmental I was, how I was trying to run the show, how I think I know everything, you know, and that didn't have to happen, you know. This disease is not about drinking. If it was about drinking, we wouldn't have had to go through the things that we have gone through. We've had to hire attorneys. We've had to pay restitution to the County of Los Angeles. We had to hire bail bondsmen. We have to see social service people. You know, we've had to clear out our bank account on a couple of occasions. You know, no drinking. No drinking. Just alcoholism. You know, and that's another thing that I used to love to hear that the old timers would say. This is alcoholism, Evelyn, not wasn't. That means that it doesn't go away. So what happened was, you know, what happened was when Darryl told you guys that he turned 20, this is my last story. This is another time that I know that I have grown. I remember waking up on June 20th, 2013, saying, is it? You know, is this all I get after 20 years? And I was like, wow. So I got up, I got dressed, I got in the car, I went to work, and I called my sponsor. And I shared with her what was in my head. Now, normally when Darryl got up and said, I'm 20 years sober, and I would, if I would have said what I thought in my head, I would have said, and what? You know, but I didn't have to do that because I didn't have to ruin his party with my thoughts, because everything I thought came out of my mouth. He went to work, I went to work, I called my sponsor. And by the time we got off the phone, you know what I had figured out? Look at my life after 17 years. I have a job that I had no business being in. None whatsoever. Sometimes I'm on that calculator, I see, do these people know who's handling their money? You know? And I got that job because those people believed that I could do it. My boss had to talk me into taking his job when he retired. I did 17 years. And somebody still has to see in me what I can't see in myself. All I kept thinking was, I haven't been here that long, and I don't have a degree, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And he was like, Evelyn, you can do this. And then he got his boss to come over and tell me, Evelyn, you can do this. And for a year, I've been doing it. And I've been doing a pretty good job at it. That is the miracle of this program. Darryl talked about Anita. She is my mini-me. When I say responsible, that girl is responsible to the epitome of responsible. And I don't take a lot of credit for that either. It's all Alateen. I don't give my children the opportunity to have opinions about their health. I didn't give them the opportunity to tell me whether they wanted to be immunized, and I didn't give them the opportunity to tell me whether they wanted to go to Alateen. This is where you're going to go. And sometimes we would have discussions about that. And Darryl was saying, do you think it's fair that we make them go? And I go, Darryl, we cannot leave our children here. We cannot go off and talk about how much this program has done for us and what a blessing and a gift it is to us, and leave our children home to suffer. I will not do that. I cannot do that. And today, they're both grateful that they were Alateen members. They both are. I never wanted to take care of Evelyn. I turned 18 this year, and Darryl forced me to take care of myself. I always thought that his money was my money and my money was his money, and that we were supposed to be a team, and when you're married, money is supposed to be money. And one day he came home and decided he wanted to have his own money. And I was like, you can't do that. Yes, I can. No, you can't. All the time the little voice in the back was saying, let him have what he wants, Evelyn. Let him have what he wants. And I was saying, he can't do that. And he was saying, yes, I can. What he was doing was forcing me to grow up and take care of myself. What he forgot was how generous my bosses are. Thank you for allowing me to share.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308 or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. and I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.